Well, where's my VTuber avatar? There it is. My handle is Thebluesquiggly. Look deep within your mind. Can you see the blue squiggly? You can't see it yet because it's still a single-celled organism. Check back in a few weeks. I'm Thebluesquiggly, and this is my Post-Toriyama-sensei review of Dragon Ball FighterZ. 6 years on, I think this game deserves to be considered in a new light. In this video, you will see art, history, economics, conflict resolution, and of course, spectacle. Join me, Thebluesquiggly, as I take you inside the Dragon Ball fighting game I've waited for more than 20 years. Let's start with the beautiful art using Unreal Engine 4. This game features, in my opinion, the best use of cell shading I've seen. It's smooth, crisp, and colorful. It looks like tremendous work has gone into it. Finally, a Dragon Ball game that gets combat right in terms of its fluidity and pacing. And an excellent roster that isn't too bloated. Japanese voice acting. This is a huge deal for me. Personally, the English voices are not right. But overall, the sound and voice acting, mostly clips from the actual series, are very well used. It's too bad that a lot of the better music has to be earned or bought though. PSA, please support the Japanese voice acting / seiyuu community. I could do a whole video on how English dubbing and norms, while intended to help people access another culture, assert themselves over it, effectively appropriating the things that make Japanese culture unique, in a kind of linguistic and cultural imperialism. It burns me up. Props to you if you choose to learn another culture's norms and language enough to enjoy it without actually altering it. I realize that a lot of us are busy. I don't want to start a huge debate in the comments over whether dubbing is generally inferior, but I've never seen both versions of anything dubbed where the dubbed version was in any way better than the original language version, except maybe in recording quality. Wait. Maybe I do want to start a comment war. You know what? Fight me! Show me an example where the dub is clearly better, and I'll send you a Thebluesquiggly plushie after I have them designed and made. Back on point, the game features accessible controls and movesets that belie significant mechanical depth. Compared to other fighters with difficult to execute moves like Dead or Alive, or games where there are 10 pages of moves for each character like Soul Calibur, some of the combat mechanics are based on Marvel vs. Capcom, and part of that series' success was also in its simplicity. Another thing I like is that it doesn't feel excessively violent or bloody. These characters get wrecked, but there are no fatalities with people getting spines ripped out or anything like that. Stuff like that is okay, but it can feel very gimmicky. DBFZ avoids the distraction. It stays very true to the franchise as well. Even though most of the releases I'm about to talk about in the history section are also first-party published, many of them can't say that. After all, Toriyama himself designed Android 21 just for this game. It's not too over-sexualized the way many other fighting games are. It's not full of exaggerated proportions, and it's not the kind of game that teen boys pause to get their voyeur on. This is a fighter for people who love this franchise and or for people who love a fun and satisfying fighter experience. At the top of my list of things I don't like about this game is the character balancing. It's realistic when you consider that the fusions are literally two people combined, and they are even stronger than the sum of their parts, in a pretty brutal and sometimes downright cheap way. But the fusions are too good. They could stand some nerfing. Another thing is that this game can be really taxing on a PS4. It's actually what made me buy a PS5 because it toasted my hard drive, even though I kept it well ventilated and I cleaned the interior regularly. It also made the classic turbojet engine fan noise like most of the time I was playing it. Another negative is the in-game economics of trophies. Every piece of music costs like 1,000,000 zenny, and there's a trophy for getting 20 million zenny. I've played this game for 2 years and I gave up trying to get it purposefully when I figured out that the fastest way to earn still gives you only 50,000 at once. I'm going to take a bit to break down the history for you so you can get a better understanding of why this game is so important. Not just to me, but to the DB fan base in general. I've been gaming for 31 years, and I've been a DB fan since '94. Can't believe I had to wait that long for a truly great fighting game based on this franchise. Check out this spiffy infographic I made. Pretty busy, right? Perhaps a bit overwhelming? That's okay, that's the point. Look how long of a road, how many okay fighting games we had to make the best of before we finally got to a truly great DB fighter in DBFZ. There are lots of games not on here. This only covers the fighting entries, and even then, just the ones that are relevant to this discussion. Let's start at the first proper Dragon Ball FighterZ. The Super Nintendo saw the first releases in the series. They were well received in the way that the Beatles were well received. There just wasn't much better at the time. As you can see, it's pretty limited by its technology. Look how slow it feels, how blah. Now on to the PS1 releases. These are some of the most hated on the whole list as far as the community is concerned. The consensus is these games were just botched all around. Check out Final Bout, my first DB fighting experience. I got this when it came out in Japan in '97. My mom drove me to the next county over to get a gray market store to mod my PS1 to play Japan region games, just so that I could play this. Owning this made me so popular among my friends. So much so that my neighbors thought I was selling drugs because I was having different people over all the time to play it. It is ugly, bland, and clunky though, especially in retrospect. The 2000s saw a slow recovery of the series with several decent games, some featuring over 100 characters. However, I, like millions of others, temporarily lost interest during this period. They mostly got mixed receptions anyway. Until... Remember that terrible live-action film they tried to make out of Dragon Ball in 2009? What a disastrous piece of shit! Anyway, they made a game out of it, which only sold 13,000 copies. Some critics called it one of the worst games ever made. The early 2010s featured a few okay but unremarkable releases for the PS3 and Xbox 360, before stopping after 2011. Then a drought ensued. A drought so long I really thought they were done making games for the franchise, and I would just have to make peace with the fact that I'd never get to play the fighting game I'd always envisioned. FighterZ finally exploded onto the scene. I have to admit I was so disappointed by prior experience that I completely wrote off this title for 4 years before snagging it on sale for like $7 at the end of 2022. It really says something that this is the first title in the list of almost 30 releases in 30 years to win nearly universal critical acclaim. And that's reflected in its sales too. It sold more than 10 million copies as of 2023, more than 10 times the average for prior releases. As we'll discuss in the next segments, one reason for this is the esports community. Another is the franchise's resurgence with the recent anime Dragon Ball Super, but most of it is just because it's a damn good fighting game. By the way, I also included DB Legends on here, which is an RPG fighter hybrid for mobile that has been incredibly successful. I just started playing this in January. It's actually pretty great, but it's also pretty gacha-y, so there is some downside. Still, this game just celebrated 100 million users as of April 2024. I haven't paid any money into this game yet, but I verified that as of 2023, it's grossed more than $1 billion, probably well above that by now. It deserves at least an honorable mention, and probably its own Thebluesquiggly video. Without further ado, let's dive deeper into the features of this game, starting with the character roster. Most of these characters are essentials. A lot of the DLC ones cost $5 each, unless you get them on sale. If you get them all, you'll have access to 44 characters. My personal favorite is Videl. She's the only one to get a hidden alternate costume, but I like how she's not super strong, nor does she have particularly great moves, but she wins with purity and hard work and by dishing out justice against all these cocky dudes abusing the fusions. I love that the devs put what feels like a lot of care into her design. She didn't get taken seriously enough in like any of the earlier games. Of course, this game's original, Android 21, is a great addition in both forms. I think everyone here is good, and they did a great job on all of them. I'm not just saying that. If there was anyone I could do without, it would be Gotenks and maybe Yamcha. I would consider ditching them in favor of someone like Pan, Chi-Chi, or even Raditz. As you can see from the character selection process, it's 3-on-3 with the ability to switch out characters with a cooldown. There's a ton of depth to the mechanics, most of which I won't touch on here. I'm just covering the absolute basics, but don't worry. The game does a great job teaching you the finer details, and the rest is just gaining experience and practice. Anyway, I'm entering practice mode just to show you that fighters all have movesets that can be looked at here, and in some other places, and to show you they're really simple. And there aren't that many for any character. The trick is in how and when you use them. Fortunately, every character plays different enough that most feel unique. That also makes a lot for you to explore later. Try everyone out, even if you don't like them at first. Give them a fair shot. I didn't like using Android 17 at first, for example, but he can actually be really fun to use. One other thing that sometimes becomes a factor in longer matches is the Shenron system. Basically, using specific combos gets you a Dragon Ball. If you can get 7, then you can summon the dragon Shenron to grant you one of 4 wishes, including bringing someone on your team back to life or refilling your health. There's also ki in this game. The ki bar at the bottom of the screen builds up with attacks, damage, or by charging it, but can also be expended to vanish or teleport behind enemies and to use special moves or extra strong regular attacks. Let's take a short tour of some of the UX/UI aspects of the game outside of combat. This is the menu, which you can bring up at any time while at the hub or dojo. You can set up your go-to teams and choose your on-screen avatar character. You can also change your settings, stickers, and phrases you use to communicate with other players. And you can design your player card, which you and your opponent see in matchups. This is also where you go to change the audio language. This is the central hub, where you can access all of the game's various modes. This is the practice area, where you should spend most of your time if you're not actively fighting someone. Training mode is great for free practice on your terms, and for testing out strategies, etc. Battle Tutorial offers 12 basic lessons on fighting. Combo Challenge teaches you various combos with each character, but the controls can be a bit touchy. It gives you an idea of each character's potential though. There's an in-game trophy room. Not much to do here, actually. This mode actually has a lot of content. In a lot of games like this, the story is paper thin and shorter than my corgi. It's fun and really well done for a story in a fighting game. It features a ton of voice dialogue and battles, and you can earn some rewards here. Also, Toriyama-sensei said that the story mode is actually considered canon, or at least so I've heard. It can take a few dozen hours to see and do everything, so that's good. Back to the shop. It's like a million zenny for anything. It takes a while to earn that much. Each BGM track, like how much is it for the DLC that contains all these? I think it's like $15 most of the time. To be honest, that sounds way easier given all the time it takes to earn money in this game. I know I've already harped on this, but come on! This is the party match area. Can you believe I played this game like 200 hours and never tried it? I would right now, but I'm in a hurry. Okay, bye. Oh, this is the replay area, where you can watch uploads from the publisher's channel of good fights. You can also save replays of your own fights and watch them here later. The World Match area is where you fight other players online. This is where you, your skills, and your internet connection will be tested. This is without a doubt where the most exciting and challenging matches that give this game its huge replay value come in. I'm a bit rusty from not getting to play most of the semester, so I'm going to move on to the other areas. But I'll talk a tiny bit more about PvP in this game in just a bit. The rankings board lets you see top ranked players from around the world and where you fit in. Local battle can be used to play against your friends, computer players, and make tournaments and stuff. Pretty standard with nice customizability. The Union Hut is a cool concept actually. Basically, you join a union representing your favorite character and you fight in matches to win ranking points for that character. There are events online based on this too. It can actually be pretty fun. Arcade mode pits your choice team against predetermined computer matchups of varying difficulty. This can be fairly good practice too. I often go here after training with a character to see how well I do at applying my training. The event space is where online events happen. They have a few types like co-op battles against bosses and things like that. The arena can be used to organize fights against people in the lobby. You can also watch fights between two other people. I rarely use it, but it's really cool to have. The dojo is another important place to go. The dojo starts out with a few characters in it. They offer different intermediate and advanced training tutorials. As you complete more of the trainings, additional characters will show up. If you want to master fighting against people online these days, you better understand as many of these concepts as possible, as deeply as possible. Last on the tour is the Tournament of Power, which you can access from here. These range from easy to somewhat challenging, and you can do them with every character to get titles for your player card. You'll have to earn your way to the toughest one, but when you do, and you beat it, you'll get 50,000 zenny. I think that's the most anything gives you in this game, so if you want that 20 million trophy, you better get cracking. I swear, as you increase in rank, it gets harder, like the AI scales up to match your skill. On the other hand, maybe I really am just getting rusty. Back to the heart of the game, rating matches. Remember, I'm really out of practice, and I'm not going to use the OP fusions much for this demonstration. This is probably the most frustrating thing about this game today. Despite selling over 10 million copies, for the most part, the only people who play this game online 6 years on are pro level or at least very good. It makes it inaccessible to new players, even though the game attempts to match you to opponents of roughly similar ranking. That's really hard for me to say. This, along with the deceptively deep but apparently simple battle system, creates a steep learning curve for new players. Character imbalance, meta strategies, and internet connection quality all play a huge role in your experience in this mode. Milliseconds matter. Drop frames matter. It's nice that the game shows you the connection lag, but it's too bad that there's not much I can do about it where I live. I'm in a rural area with not so good Wi-Fi internet. If I had an Ethernet or fiber or something where I lived, my PvP ranking would probably be a lot better. I tested my connection. A good ping for an online gaming setup would be about 50 milliseconds or lower, preferably more like 20. Mine is around 77 on a good day, and as much as 180 on a bad one. If this sounds like you, you're probably going to be frustrated by online matches unless you can get that resolved. Finally, before I render my verdict, I just want to point out that this game still has significant positive sentiment in 2024 among those in the DB fandom and in the fighting game community. There is still an active esports community around this admittedly maturing title. It just got a major update, one that supposedly improved the functionality on current gen systems. It's a pretty safe bet that it will carry on strong, even with no new content, until a sequel is released. The steep learning curve, unlike in some other daunting fighters, actually did make me want to say, challenge accepted in this. On the surface, it's a game that most people can learn to play well enough on their own or with friends. It's a fun party game and okay for casually letting off steam. Pretty good for that actually, but it's when you take it seriously and plumb its hidden depths that it truly shines. You challenge the world, you challenge yourself. It's up to you to take that opportunity into your own hands to grow. Better, stronger, faster, smarter, more passionate about everything that Dragon Ball really embodied about self-improvement through the martial arts. I keep playing it. I keep coming back, even after like 300 hours, because it is challenging and I want to get better. I'm ready to move on from most games much earlier. If you are a fan or were one, it does a good job of giving you that nostalgia fix, or even rekindling your nostalgia fire. Dragon Ball as a franchise continues to have a lot to offer, and this game is what reignited my interest in it to the point that I went back and watched all of it. All of it. Just waiting to start Super until after I finish my Masters, hopefully this spring. I think FighterZ is visually beautiful for a fighting game, artful even. It continues to look amazing to me even in 2024. Until they make another one, I think it will continue to have a small, loyal following of active players. Even when it is done and the servers are shut down, I think this game will be fondly remembered by most who experienced it, and it will be held up as a gem in Dragon Ball games, which before this were mostly duds or at least significantly flawed. Beyond that, I think it will be remembered as a top-tier example of what a 2D fighter can and should be. All that said, I'm happy to give this game full marks, 10 out of 10. Since this is my first video review, I figured I'd start with a game I love. It's not perfect, but it's so good to me that it might as well be. I also need to contextualize this by saying that, yeah, 32 years playing games, much of that full-time, across all genres and most platforms over like 500 plus games that I've conquered and written unpublished reviews for, this is one of 11 games that I've given a full score to. That's how much I believe in what this game was trying to be and how well it ended up exceeding all my expectations. That does it for this long love letter to Dragon Ball FighterZ. Please let me know how I can improve with your comments. Please do like a 50 hit combo on that like button and subscribe if you want to see more in-depth reviews and other content I'll be coming out with in the near future. I promise that the next video will be the opposite. At least one, maybe a few, games that I've given the lowest scores to. Follow me on socials at Thebluesquiggly. You can even donate via PayPal or Patreon, or on my site at thebluesquiggly.com. Before I wrap up, I just want to shout out Wicked Wiz, who inspired me to believe that I could do video game content, and to my master's thesis portfolio committee chair, who showed me that life actually can be a lot easier when you use your skills to embrace your passions. Finally, this video is dedicated to Akira Toriyama for all his marvelous creations. Sadly, he passed the same day I decided to make this video, but I didn't know it at the time. And to everyone who made DBFZ, and to everyone, including the fans, who made Dragon Ball into the phenomenon that it deserves to be. Thank you for watching.